Hello, and thanks for joining us. In today's show, a sneak peek at some of the films up for competition at this year's Oscars.
Is there anything you don't know?
Boundless by the time I cry.
You only knew how little I know about the things that matter.
Build your walls around.
What things?
Call Me By Your Name is a coming-of-age drama that's been nominated for 4 awards, including Best Picture. Eve Jackson got to chat about the film with director Luca Guadagnino.
Everyone has their own truth. I was the best figure skater in the world.
And it made Olympic headlines back in 1994. Now the movie I, Tonya retraces the story of figure skater Tonya Harding and the attack on her rival. Our team attended the premiere here in Paris. Call Me By Your Name is based on the book with the same name by Andre Aciman. It tells the story of a teenager, Elio, who lives in northern Italy with his parents. Elio's father, a university professor, invites an American doctoral student to help him work one summer. A bond is formed and life lessons are learned. Eve Jackson spoke with director Luca Guadagnino about how the film has been received.
Professor Perlman. Thank you so much.
So nice. I can show you around.
That'd be great. Thank you. So what do you do around here?
Read books, transcribe music, swim at the river, go out at night.
Sounds fun.
Luca, congratulations on the film. It's been nominated for an Oscar. Did you have any idea how the film was going to be received by people?
When we were doing it? Nah. Absolutely. I never work in a way in which I think of the outcome of the film in terms of its relationship with the audience or its possible success. And yet, every occasion in which this movie went public and people reacted to it in such a tremendously intoxicating, enthusiastic way, I was constantly surprised and humbled. And it became a sort of vehicle for an audience individually to think of their own sentimental life. And this is very illuminating of the power of cinema for me.
That sounds different. Did you change it?
Well, I changed it a little bit.
Why?
I just played it the way Liszt would have played it if he'd altered Bach's version.
Timothy is the youngest Oscar nominee for Best Actor in decades. How did you know you were going to be able to bring out such incredible chemistry between him and Armie in the film?
When I met Timothée, I just knew that this young man, he was 17 when I met him, had not only the perfect physicality to fit the character of Elio, he had one thing that I really appreciate, which was ambition and crave for excellence through what was already his heart, which is acting. So I didn't predict for him to be nominated for an Academy Award, but I was certainly stunned to see him unrolling Elio.
Armie Hamid actually didn't want to do the film in the beginning, though, did he? How did you persuade him?
It was a very lovely phone call we had, in which I said to Armie, ask yourself why you feel fearful of this film. I said to him, if you are bored by the script or if you are not interested in it, if you feel like that there is something you already went through, but if you say to me that you have fears about it, I ask yourself what motivates those fears. And I said something quite banal to him because, you know, I remembered my readings of Freud, and I remember the title of the first feature film by the masterful, legendary Stanley Kubrick, Fear and Desire. So that triggered in him a curiosity that overcome the fear. And at the end of the phone call, he said to me, okay, I'm in.
Can you tell us about Army and Timothee's first and only rehearsal?
What I can tell you is that I didn't need to rehearse. I needed to show them that I was careful and careless at the same time vis-à-vis, for them, possibly complicated moment of the kiss, where I wanted it to be as normal as another scene in the movie, like eating the egg or swimming or cycling, you know, like. So I said, you know, kiss. And so I needed to see it just to know if they were shielding themselves, if they were acting, or instead of doing that, if they were letting Elio and Oliver to be alive and fleshy. And so they started. At the beginning there was some shyness, but it was a very lovely shyness. I encouraged them to let themselves go, and they did. And once in watching them, it clicked to me that we were completely fine because Ellie and Oliver were kissing in that moment. I just left. Probably because I was thinking maybe they want to stay together alone.
Prego. Hey, boys!
There has, though, been a little bit of a backlash about the lack of gay sex that we see in the film.
The idea that a movie that includes love, intimacy, and sex between two same-gender people has to showcase certain degrees of graphicness and full frontal nudity to affirm its integrity is as exotic as saying that in a movie in which you have a cannibal, you have to see real human flesh being eaten. So we have movies like The Human Centipede, which is probably considered one of the most unbearably to look at films in the history of cinema. And then we have The Silence of the Lambs, which is considered one of the greatest movies ever made. And I do remember that the great master Jonathan Demme, when he was shooting the film, he talks about cruelty, and he talks about exploitation. And the way he portrays the violence perpetrated by Hannibal Lecter, it is so sublime, so incisive, and yet so suggestive without being graphic at all. So I think this is a movie in which you have to experience the intimacy of these people. And I don't see how that has to do with lowering the camera framing to their parts, to their sexual parts. I just don't get it. But to cut it to the chase, next time, in the next chronicle of Ellie and Oliver and Mr. Perlman and Mrs. Perlman and Marty and everybody else, you know what we will do? We'll show every character coming off the shower in a lovely full frontal. So we've done it.
Luca, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Call me by your name and I'll call you by mine.
I, Tonya hits cinemas this week in France. It's the story of Tonya Harding, the infamous skater accused of plotting to attack her rival, Nancy Kerrigan, ahead of the 1994 Olympic Games. The scandal gripped America for months, with the two women becoming household names. In I, Tonya, a mockumentary comedy and drama, we see the forces that shaped that rivalry. Our team attended the premiere here in Paris.
My entire life, I've been told I wouldn't amount to anything. And you know what? Maybe I would.
The first American woman to land a triple axel jump.
I was the best figure skater in the world at one point in time.
I, Tonya, a film based on a true story. In 1994, just before the Olympics, Harding's rival, Nancy Kerrigan, is struck on the knee by an unidentified man. Tonya Harding is accused of plotting the attack. The scandal splashed all over the international media. Harding always denied being involved in the incident.
What kind of friggin' person bashes in their friend's knee? Who would do that to a friend?
The controversial ice skater is played by Margot Robbie. The Australian actress says it was a challenging role.
Physically, it obviously took a lot of hours and, you know, just a lot of time on the ice. And emotionally, it was, at times, really heartbreaking to explore what it would be like to be in the circumstances she was in.
The movie portrays her childhood, growing up poor in a broken family.
Clean skate? Stop talking to her. That girl is your enemy.
The film director was inspired by real interviews given by Tonya Harding herself and her husband, Jeff, sentenced to 2 years in prison for his involvement in the plot.
It's almost in documentary fashion. Like, you get to hear what Tonya believes was the truth. You get to hear what Jeff said was the truth. As an audience, you get to participate and decide what you think is true.
Tonya Harding's ice skating career ended up in tatters. She was sentenced to 3 years probation and a hefty fine for hindering the prosecution, and she was banned for life from the US Figure Skating Association.
We leave you with a clip of The Darkest Hour about Churchill during World War II. Gary Oldman won a BAFTA this week for the role, and we'll see how it does at the Oscars. Don't forget to check out our website. We're also on Twitter and Facebook. There's more news coming up on France 24. Do stay with us.
Hitler will not insist on outrageous terms. He will know his own weaknesses. He will be reasonable.
When will the lesson be learned? When will the lesson be learned? How many more dictators must be wooed, appeased, good God, given him mixed privileges, before we learn? You cannot reason with a tiger when your head is in its mouth!